I was going to talk musicians because you guys, you come across as fans and not just, as a artist and musician. You guys can actually, you guys actually know your history, you know your facts, and you come across straightforward. And for me, as a fan that can't, sing a lick, to hear you guys talk about your appreciation and your influences and, concepts behind songs, all that's interesting to me. Like, it's very, I found all that stuff interesting. I can just sit and listen to people talk about how they wrote a song and, how to create a bridge and how to create a harmony. That stuff, to me, that's, gold.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
well, I appreciate the great questions, man, because you're asking questions that no one's ever asked and get me excited.
All right, so moving on. Who was one female artist you would love to do a duet with?
Faith Evans. Faith Evans. I've got a chance to meet her a couple times and see her perform, but she was always, it's funny. I was telling my fiance yesterday. We were listening to "I Never Want to Live Without You," on Mary J's "My Life" album, and I covered that song for Soul Bounce. They did a "Men Love Mary." I covered that song. But what made me fall in love with that song was the background vocals. And Faith Evans is on the background vocals. And since that moment, I've been a Faith Evans fan. So when she dropped her first album, which is a classic, I've been all over her and all over that. And I call her like my R&B mama, because I'm just like, I'm so in love with this lady. And hopefully maybe one day down the line somewhere, I don't know, I may get an opportunity to do a song with her because I think we would just make something classic. I would love her to redo, Break Up with me. That would be dope.
Yeah, that Men Love Mary album was a great project, and that would have been a hell of a thing to get taped live. Cause you were on there. Eric Roberson was on there. Who else was on there? I know you were on there. Eric Roberson was on there. I'm trying to remember who else was on there. But
TL Cross, Darian Dean. Who else was on that project? Man, there was so many people on that project. We actually did a live show at SOBs for that, and I don't know. I think it was taped, but I have never seen any footage from it.
Oh, yeah, that's something I would love.
That was an amazing show. Jesse Boykins, he was on there.
Yeah, that's something I would love to be in the house for. Is seeing you guys do that live, because listening to it's like you guys flipped everything from a male. To me, it was flipping everything from a male point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're singing, Mary songs, it's like you're not coming off as women. You're coming off as something that the guys can relate to. Because males are singing about the stuff.
Right. No, it definitely had the masculine feel to it. It was definitely flipped and projected from, our perspective, but the integrity of what she did still was maintained. And Chucky Booker was also involved in that project. He was a part of it as well. So it was definitely
Chucky, man. He brought Chucky. Yeah. He brought Chucky Booker involved. That's another one. Chucky's another one that people have no idea how bad that dude is. That doesn't get his just just too. Like I said, I'm a music fan, so yeah, Chucky's another one who doesn't get his just due, and you're not the first artist I've interviewed that's brought up Chucky. Like, yeah, Glenn Jones. When I interviewed Glenn Jones, he said the same thing. He's like, man, Chucky is a bad boy. Like,
yeah,
idea how people have no idea how talented Chucky was behind the behind the keys. Chucky was the musical director for Janet Rhythm Nation tour. Yeah, so yeah, I know a little bit of something there. Like like I said, I'm a music buff.
Kind of soul.
All right, so moving on. String collaborations. If you could sing a hook on any song for any MC, dead or alive, who would you pick and why?
I could sing a song for any MC.
Yeah, sing the hook.
Huh. That's a good question too. I guess I'm gonna go with Big, man. Big was on with Big or Pac. They were my, I've come from that era, so they were my faves. You know, and those are the ones who inspired me. And, you know, I put on any one of their songs, I probably know every lyric. I know almost every lyric to every Biggie song. So, you know, Pac got too many songs to know every lyric to his. But, you know, it's definitely one of those two. One or two. Like right now, I would love to do a song with Pac right now. I think he would definitely be, you know, on social, you know, justice right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean with Pac, that's I'm a Pac fan, like his stuff, have his entire discography, but I always tell people I was never really like a diehard Pac fan, and it's only because I don't have him in the regard as the Biggies, the Jays, the Nas, the Karenses, and all that. He was on something else. And
he was on something else, and you got to put him in his own box, you know, because he was on and for me, revolutionary stuff.
Yeah, and for me, I think of Pac as I always thought of Pac as my generation, you know, 81 plus. I thought of Pac as like our modern day Jill Scott Heron. Like, you know, that's what he was on. It was like self improvement and this is what it's about. And you know, Pac, one of them cats that he might pop if he was alive now, might pop up into his show with, say, B.B. King, and it'd just be him reading poetry. That'd be the entire show. Or he'd be out here, you know, fundraising for Flint, or he'd be out here, you know, fundraising for the coronavirus.
Right.
He was on something else. He wasn't, you know, an MC to me. He was totally different stratosphere.
Right. I think him and Prince to me are kind of in a similar box. I think, you know, Prince would have been on the same stuff. You know, I think I saw my guy Kwame Holland. He posted on his Instagram, what would Prince's Instagram performance look like? You know, if he could if Prince was alive, do an IG live, what would that look like? That would probably be one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. You know, and he was an activist, you know, Jehovah's Witness, things of that, but he was an activist, and he was, you know, for self-empowerment and entrepreneur, you know, and ownership, things of that nature, you know, and artist empowerment. And, you know, I think him and Pac, to me, were very similar. They went about it differently, but very similar in, you know, their character and their goals as far as empowering others to take ownership of themselves and their business and their lives.
No doubt. I'm a big fan of musical biopics. Who was one artist's story you would love to see on the big screen, and who would you cast in the role?
Sam Cooke and me.
Naturally.
I would love to do Sam Cooke.
Yeah, Sam had a story, and it's Sam's one of those who's it's surprising that they haven't told Sam's story yet. I mean, just biopics in general is my favorite film genre. So I think the top three that I'm always shocked they haven't got a story yet are Sam Cooke, Donny Hathaway, and Lynn Bias. Those are the three people who you would figure by now they would have had a story done on them, because it's, you know, aside from the tragedy of it, it's just, you know, it's just an amazing story, and it's always one of those stories like, you know, a what if, especially Lynn Bias. I mean, you know, I'm from the DMV, so yeah, I've heard plenty of stories from older coworkers and people that grew up here when he was in his prime that Lynn would have definitely gave Jordan a run for his money. It would have been a totally
that's what I hear. I haven't seen a lot of them. Now you're going to make me go and see if I can find some YouTube video, but definitely heard, you know, a lot of the same stories about Lynn and, you know, his tragic passing and things that, you know, and the what ifs about him. You know, Donny Hathaway, one of my all-time favorites. You know, Sam Cooke, and you know, I'm actually shocked they haven't done anything on Donny. You know, that I would feel like that would be something that was coming down the pipeline. You know, it's funny. You know, one thing I learned a lot about Donny is some of his biggest hits were covers. You know, Little Ghetto Boy, and like a lot of the hits that he sang were covers from Nina Simone, I believe. And I'm like, I did not know that.
Yeah, something like that. It's one of those things, and you always wonder what if about Donnie, about Sam, about Lynn, and especially with Sam and Donnie. I mean, probably two of the most hard to cover songs of any artist, in my opinion, are A Song for You and A Change Is Gonna Come, because the way they start out, it's like they hit you right away with the
Yeah, you can't come in sloppy. You can't come in sloppy on those songs.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of singers, it's not a shot at them, but it's almost, again, I can't sing a lick. I know a little bit, so it's almost like how they were singing the songs. They brought the bravado from their lower register, from down in their gut, out right away.
Their feet. That's one thing I know. I did Donny Hathaway's A Song for You on the Apollo, and A Showtime at the Apollo, and I studied that song for a good 2-3 months, and it was the bottoms. It was his baritone that it was so full and so warm, and you really had to capture that, and that's what hit you in your heart, and that's what gave the audience and whomever was listening chills. That bottom and what he was doing, it was so haunting. Like a lot of Donnie's songs are haunting, and you just have no choice but to listen and to feel, just because of the notes that he used, and then how he chose to sing them. It was just give me chills just thinking about it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Your new single, No War, is a different direction than fans I've used to. What was the inspiration behind going in a different direction?
Well, I've been working on this song for over 2 years, and there was, eventually, this is probably the first I'm talking about it, publicly, but over the last few years, I've gone through a lot of transition. Since Thank You, my 2013 release, I've had a son. I'm no longer with his mother. I've lost both my grandparents who raised me. I had lost everything at one point and had to move back home with my mother and rebuild my life, literally from a part-time job to 2 part-time jobs to a full-time job to back on my feet, to now I'm engaged to be married again, things of that nature. So it's been a long journey, of rediscovery of myself. I fell out of love with music. I was at one point I felt like I was getting better. I was, becoming better as an artist and, as a performer and everything. But the crowds were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the industry really took a hard turn towards social media marketing and things of that nature. And I wasn't a fan of that. I wasn't a fan of putting everything I know on those social media platforms. So that was a hard transition for me. It still is to this day. So I kind of, in the attempts to get my world back together, I had to even just decide if I wanted to be a musician again, because the highs weren't as high and the lows were even lower. And the income was changing and it wasn't coming the way I would have liked, the way I felt my talent deserved, or I won't say deserved, but the way I don't want to say deserved. I don't like to use that word, but I just didn't feel like I was, being compensated the way I would have liked, for the energy and the effort and time and professionalism and things that I was putting out. And a lot of that is contingent on other people. It's not even contingent on my efforts. I can be great and be good at what I do, but people have to like it. People have to want to invest in it. People have to find a reason to invest in it, and want to be a part of it. And, that's sometimes a moving goalpost and, ever changing depending on the trends or this, that, and the other. And, or how, or having, finances behind you and things of that nature, and being able to get yourself in front of the people you want to support you. So those things became, after the Thank You album kind of died out. I got a good run off the Thank You album. It ran for a good 4 or 5 years strong. Before it, I'll say 4 or 5, 3 or 4 years strong before it started to kind of die out a little bit. You know, I was able to put out a lot of singles, things of that nature. I had good support behind it, and, you know, that time was up. And all these things that I just disclosed happened, and really had to move back home and help take care of mom and pop as they were transitioning. And, you know, just you kind of discover, like, what's important. Like, what I thought was important wasn't important anymore. You know, the sacrifices I was making for music in my career didn't feel like worthwhile sacrifices anymore. You know, I had other things in my heart and on my mind, so I had to find myself again. You know, in this, you know, we all change. As we grow older, we're never the same. We change, we evolve. We're different people at different seasons and different times. And I found myself in a different season, and I was a different person. So who is that person, and what does that person value, and who does he want to be? And I realized that, you know, I want to do music. I still want that to be a part of my life. It doesn't have to be the only part of my life. You know, but it's definitely a part of my life. But if I'm going to do it, I have to do it from a place of purity, because I have to do it from a place where I'm not going to be upset at the results. So if I'm not making a lot of money, if I'm not getting a lot of shows, if I'm not, you know, if everybody doesn't like it, it doesn't matter, because I did it from a place of healing, of help, of love. Like, whoever connects to it, and if they get something out of it, great. You know, if it blows up, great. If it doesn't, well, I did what I wanted to do, and I won't be upset about the time, energy, and money and effort I spent in creating this project. You know, and from that, you know, I started taking piano lessons. You know, I built a studio, you know, and I started teaching myself how to produce. I'd never produced before, and I started teaching myself how to produce. You know, honestly, I'm a spiritual person, and then God told me that this next project had to come from me, you know, and I wasn't finding success, you know, collaborating with other producers and getting them on board. And, you know, it was years I couldn't get anybody to collaborate with me. And I was like, you know what? This has to come from me. God, I just kept hearing that. You have to do it. You have to do it. There will not be any shortcuts. You have to do it. So I got on that journey. And here we are with No War. You know, I think I wrote this, I wrote the song maybe a year ago. Maybe a little more than a year ago, but I've been working on the production for, you know, maybe 2 years. And once I got the production done, you know, this is how God works. This is how, you know, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, whatever, is how it works. I got the project done, and it's funny because I went out, I got it mixed and mastered, and I started sending it out to people just to start the buzz, get feedback, and everybody started coming back to me with offering their talents. Like Marcus Machado, Bradd, I want to replay the guitar for you. You know, my guy Sean Bass, Bradd, I want to replay the bass for you. You know, my engineer went above and beyond in mixing it. You know, and like I had samples on it and everything. Like I went back and I re-sung the sample. So, you know, as to hopefully, you know, give it a longer lifespan. You know, my engineer helped he replayed the drums, you know, for me. Like everybody offered their talents. You know, Gordon Chambers, Bradd, you know, you need to add vocals here, and do this and that. You know, just freely offered their talents to make this song great. And Gordon was like, yo, this is important songs, important message. You have to do right by it. I ended up almost redoing the whole song, you know, with live instrumentation and having to have it remixed and remastered again before we get to this point now where we're releasing it this weekend.
Yeah, so, I can definitely respect that, and I respect you being open and honest. And I mean, what I found is I know what I found with a lot of artists, you know, they'll say the same thing you're saying. It's like, you know, once you kind of lose that passion to perform and to sing, you know, it's better to take a break, fall back, and rediscover, you know, the love for it than just doing it just because. I even found myself as a, you know, DJing. Like, I haven't DJed in 12 years, if not longer. And, you know, when I was in the UK, when I was in the Air Force, you know, I was the man. I was a big-time DJ, but I was single, young, early 20s, enjoying life. When I came back to the States, my listen was up, met my wife, you know, had my son. It's like the high was gone. And the high was gone, and the fulfillment that I got out of DJing, I got from my wife and from my son. And then it's like you were just saying, the older you get, the more you change. And the music that I want to play doesn't really cater to the, that younger market. And it's more, I would get more enjoyment out of doing weddings and doing like a cabaret or, an older type of sound than I would from being in a club, to 2, 3 in the morning. Like, no, it's that's not what it's at anymore. That's not, fun. And I would find that I'd be DJing, up here, and I'm constantly texting my wife, because I'd rather be with her than making money. Because, the passion and drive wasn't there. So, yeah, absolutely. I totally get where you're coming from. Like, you have my most respect, not only as a fan, but, but as a man, because too often I think artists will just throw a project out there just because, and their heart really isn't in it. So I'd rather an artist that, give me a true to life project than just doing something just because keep up times and everything. Because once you get to a point, I think for me as an artist, if you are an artist, once you get to a point when you have a solid fan base and they'll support you and come out and see you no matter what, that's really all that should matter. I mean, to me, as a fan, it's like somebody like an Usher. I mean, to me, Usher can tour off of Confessions till the day he dies.
Right.
That's all I need to hear is the Confessions album.
8701 actually his first, I'll say 3 of his first 4 albums. His first 4 albums. I'll give him 4. His first 4 albums. Actually, his first 5. I'm not done. Here I Stand was a dope album. I don't care what nobody say.
Oh yeah. And see, and here, and again, Here I Stand. I just got married. My son was on the way. So that album, everything he was talking about, I can relate to because I was growing as a man, and so the stuff made sense to me. It's not saying that other stuff is bad, but it's like he's almost 30, so he's older now, so he's thinking about what's going on in his life.
I think with that album, I have this conversation with George all the time. I think he grew up faster than everybody was ready for him to grow up.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think it connected with his fan base the way he had hoped, because he went to the Gerald Levert level, and they wasn't ready for that. They wanted Confessions too. They wanted him to still be single and still be out here doing, be in the club and all of that. And he got married and went to Gerald Levert level, which is, from I've heard him say, Gerald Levert was his favorite artist or one of his favorite artists. So that level of maturity is what we got, on Here I Stand. And to take it back to what you were saying previously, it's funny because I did, in 2017, I released Who Let You Go. And that was the first single of a project that I was planning on putting out that I scrapped because I didn't like the songs that I was writing. I didn't like the messaging. When I listened to the songs that I had written, I could not see myself on stage performing them. I did not want to take my career in that direction because it would have been inauthentic to who I was becoming. And so I scrapped the whole project. And that's kind of when it just took that break. And actually I was in break before that, but I was trying to force something. And, I just said, you know what, I'm not going to force this because, this is not where I want to go. And Sam Cooke, my Sam Cooke shows showed me where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I just had to figure out how to do it for Bradd Marquis. I wanted to be on that stage and get the same energy and same looks and have, similar messaging and have the same responses. And I wanted people to take away from Bradd Marquis with the same kind of things they were taking away from my Sam Cooke show. And I had to go in a different direction, and No War is hopefully the beginning of in that direction. This next EP, which is not even titled yet. I might call it Bradd Period or something like that, but is what I'm leaning towards. But, it'll be a 5-song EP, but just over a lot of the things that we discussed in this conversation. My grandparents passing, having a son, uplifting kind of music, things of that nature, introspective kind of songs that hopefully will heal and help people, or at least allow people to feel like they're not alone in their journey. you know, and No War just happened to be, you know, the first song, and like I could have released it a bunch of different times and it was spoke to where we're at as a society. You know, it's just one of those type of songs, you know, and it was actually inspired. No War was inspired by George Little, you know, George Littlejohn. You know, he's, you know, CEO, co-owner of Purpose, and my distributor for my last few projects. You know, he used to always talk to me about the OJs and how the OJs would have, you know, serious songs, but they'd be over top of hard driving up tempo tracks, you know, Backstabbers and For the Love of Money and all of that stuff. Like, you would have real serious songs, but you would nod your head the whole time, like like, oh, you know. And that's kind of what inspired this song and how it was produced.
Yeah, George is a good brother. He's given me a lot of artists and song tracks to go and check out. Like, you know, I can you know, I still read album credits, so, you know, I can bring up an artist and you know, I go to George and George told me, yeah, go download this album or download this song, or, you know. So yeah, he's very knowledgeable, very, very good brother. I'm gonna go off track really quick with the going back to the Usher thing, as a you know, because what you said I never really thought about growing up too soon with the Here I Stand project. So Here I Stand, I'm like, you know, I think it's very underrated. I think that's probably the best he ever sang.
Mm-hmm.
You know, vocally, I mean, he can sing regardless, but I mean, vocally, I think Here I Stand has some of his strongest vocal performance. Like, you know, he's much more controlled, much more. All right, I can sing. You know, I'm not gonna be out here dancing and popping and locking and all that. But I can actually, and I can really sing and be a mainstream balladeer. Do you think if that product were released today, do you think the response would be stronger than had it come out?
It'd be a smash. It'd be a smash. It'd be number one record. If it was released, I don't know exactly when it was released, but if it was released any time within the last 10 years, I think it would have been a smash. You know, I think he put it out too soon. You know, no, let me take that back. I don't believe he put it out too soon, but by industry standards, you know, and who he was at the time and where he was headed at the time of coming off of Confessions, I believe, you know, general public, whomever thought they put it out, I appreciate it because I'm an R&B guy, and I appreciated, the, you know, everything that was on that, every song on that project. You know, I actually, the song I probably like the least is the one that, one of the first ones, the one that kind of sounds like In the Club, you know, like, because they kind of felt like he was trying to channel Love in This Club, when I'm like, and all the other songs is like straight R&B.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's one of those. It's one of those things where, I mean, Confessions was such a strong project. I mean, just from his from commercially and well, you know, Diamond, you know, When Diamond. That was like, to me, Confessions is his Thriller album. So no matter what, he's never probably gonna top Confessions from a sales point. Mm-hmm. So any artist, I mean, you know, it was gonna be huge. It was gonna be a huge undertaking to try and top that. Like, you know, he couldn't be done. It's almost the same thing that Michael went through with Bad and Thriller. Like, he was never gonna top Thriller. And same with Prince and Purple Rain. Like, you know, he was never gonna top the commercial success of Purple Rain. You know, I mean, it's just but he has better albums than.
But these albums were created in a vacuum. These albums were created with an intention and a space and an emotional, like, there was things surrounding these projects, be it the first one or be it just, you know, they're trying to prove a point. You know, Mike was trying to prove a point on Thriller. You know, Prince was probably trying to prove a point on Purple Rain. You know, because other projects, Off the Wall didn't do what he wanted it to do, and he wanted to double down on it. You know, and so did he get Thriller? You know, but you know, but there's, you know, these songs, the Confessions was made in a space. I do believe we have yet to hear the best of Usher. I do believe. I have high hopes. The last 2 songs that he just released recently, the Moment LMA and the one he just released, his vocals are incredible on those. You know, he sounds like a pure vet with complete control over his vocals, and I'm anticipating something real good. You know, or hopefully with this next Confessions project, if that's what it is. I think it's Confessions 2 or something like that. And he went back with Brian Michael Cox and Jermaine Dupri and, you know, all his old hats. He went back to them to get that inspiration, and I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, you hear it from an artist standpoint and someone who can actually sing and critique, and so that's kind of how I am. It's like, you know, I tell people, I mean, Usher, going back to the '94 album, the very first album, not Maui, but I mean the very first album, he was like 14 or 15. The way he was singing, that strong, that young, yeah, you just knew that he was going to be a force to be reckoned with. And it's like, yeah, we haven't even heard everything he can do vocally. And I was saying the same thing, George, like 2 years ago, you know, a long time ago, he should have just, when music kind of shifted to being streaming and not really focused on the physical side of it anymore, you know, physical copies, just the streaming aspect of it, that would have been the time to focus on the adult contemporary crowd, because, you know, we're all in our, you know, approaching late 30s, early 40s. So focus on that urban AC crowd. Don't worry about, you know, the pop side of it or, like, you know, the mainstream, because you're Usher. And no matter what, people are generally going to support you. I mean, it's like Usher can do a show right now anywhere in the world, like a pop-up show, you know, coronavirus, you know, withstanding, and people will come out and support him. Like, you know, they'll go see him at a pop-up show and pay hundreds of dollars because he's Usher. So you don't have to really, you know, cater to 14 and 15-year-olds by doing, like, you know, auto-tune and doing songs with people that wear skinny jeans, because you already have a solid, pristine fan base.